Okay, let's unpack this. Like, I want you to imagine a scenario.
Okay.
You've just gone out and you bought the most expensive, high-tech security system for your home.
Yeah.
I mean, you've gone all out.
Right.
You've got the motion sensors, the 4K cameras with night vision, the reinforced steel doors, biometric locks. You've spent an absolute fortune because you have this deep, primal need to protect your family and your most valuable possessions. You feel good about it. You feel secure.
It sounds like a fortress, a very responsible move.
Right.
Yeah.
It feels incredibly responsible. But then, imagine this. The moment the installation crew leaves, you take a yellow sticky note. You write down the master passcode to the alarm and the combination to the safe. You walk down the street and you hand that sticky note to a guy who is, like, locally famous for breaking into houses.
Oh, wow.
And you just say, here you go. Keep an eye on this for me.
That is a terrifying image. And frankly, it sounds ridiculous. It sounds like something out of a bad comedy sketch. No rational person would ever do that.
It does sound ridiculous. It sounds insane. But here's where it gets really interesting. And honestly, it's a little disturbing. According to the stack of research we have in front of us today, that is effectively what millions of responsible, financially savvy people do every single day. They take massive steps to protect their wealth, to get off the grid, to buy physical assets like gold and silver to hedge against inflation. And then they hand the keys right back to the very system they're trying to protect themselves from.
We are talking about the safe deposit box trap.
Exactly. And this is going to be a bit of a different deep dive today. And we aren't just reviewing an article. We're treating this like an intelligence briefing. We have a specific mission profile.
Right. The mission is a forensic audit of the banking vault system because there is this massive disconnect, a paradox really, between the perception of safety that the average person has and the legal reality of risk that actually exists.
I think we need to start with that perception because I'll be honest, I probably fall into this category. I'm the traditional saver in this scenario. When I think of a bank vault, I don't think of risk. I think of the movies. I think of those 3-foot thick steel doors, time locks, armed guards, huge marble floors. It feels like the safest place on earth. If I buy silver bars to protect my purchasing power, putting them in a safe deposit box feels like the adult thing to do. You know?
Yeah.
It feels professional.
And that feeling, that emotional response to the marble and the steel, that is exactly what the banking system relies on. It's the illusion of the fortress. But my role here today is to play the security auditor. And when an auditor looks at a system, we don't look at the aesthetics. We don't care about how shiny the lobby is. We look at the liabilities. We look at the contract law. We look at the failure modes. And the reality is, by putting your metals in a commercial bank, you have reintroduced the exact counterparty risk you were trying to eliminate.
That's the core contradiction we need to unpack. Because the whole point, the entire point of owning physical metal like gold or silver is that it has no counterparty risk. It isn't a promise to pay like a bond or a dollar bill. It is the payment.
It is final settlement. Precisely. It is a bearer asset. The value is in the object itself. If you hold it, you own it.
Right.
But the moment you lock it in a bank's infrastructure, you are now subject to the bank's solvency, the bank's operating hours, the bank's corporate policies, and as we will see, the government's reach.
So you've taken a decentralized asset and centralized it.
You voluntarily put your neck back in the noose.
That's a heavy metaphor. But looking at the sources, it seems pretty accurate. So we have a roadmap of terror for this episode.
A roadmap of terror. I like it.
We're going to look at 3 specific traps. First, the insurance myth, the idea that if the bank burns down or gets robbed, you get paid.
Right.
Second, the access trap. What happens when you need your money but the doors are locked? And third, and honestly, this is the most terrifying one, the confiscation precedent.
Which brings us to the FBI raid in Beverly Hills. That's a case study that everyone needs to hear because it really changes the definition of innocent.
We're going to get into the gritty play-by-play details of that later, and let me tell you, it plays out like a crime thriller.
It does.
But let's start with the basics. The sticker on the door. The FDIC.
The FDIC illusion. This is where the legal reality check hits the hardest for most people. This is the first line of deception.
Okay, so walk me through this. I walk into my bank. Let's say it's big chain Chase, Wells Fargo, doesn't matter. On the glass door, right at eye level, there is that gold and black sticker. Member FDIC.
Yep, you see it everywhere.
It says my deposits are insured up to $250,000. That gives me a warm and fuzzy feeling. I naturally assume that force field extends, 10 feet further back into the vault.
Right.
If the bank gets robbed or burns down, Uncle Sam writes me a check. That's the deal, right?
And that assumption is statistically common. I mean, probably 95% of people believe that, but legally, it is dead wrong.
Wrong.
We need to look at the forensic reality here. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the FDIC insures deposits.
Meaning cash. And checking accounts, savings accounts, CDs.
Correct. Those are specific financial instruments. Those are liabilities on the bank's balance sheet. When you deposit cash, you are technically lending money to the bank.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
I'm a lender.
You become an unsecured creditor of the bank. The bank takes your cash, lends it out to a guy buying a house, and promises to pay you back later. Because that fractional reserve system is inherently fragile, the government insures that loan you made to the bank up to a limit.
Okay, I follow that. That's standard banking.
But a safe deposit box is a completely different legal animal. It falls under a different area of law entirely. It is not depository law. It is bailment law, or more commonly now, lease law.
Bailment law. I'm not familiar with that term.
It's the same legal framework that applies when you park your car in a garage or check your coat at a fancy restaurant. You are transferring possession of a space, but not ownership of the contents. But specifically with a safe deposit box, most modern contracts frame it strictly as a lease.
A lease.
The bank is not a financial institution in this context. They're a landlord.
So I'm just a tenant renting a 10 by 10-inch metal apartment.
Exactly. Think of it like renting a self-storage unit down by the highway for your old furniture. The bank is the landlord renting you a metal box.
Okay.
And just like a storage unit facility, the landlord is generally not responsible for what you put inside the unit.
Wait, hold on. I have to push back on that. A storage unit is a tin shack with a padlock. A bank vault is a high-security facility?
I know.
I'm paying a premium for that security. Surely there's a higher standard of care. If the bank burns to the ground, or if a tornado rips the roof off, and this happens more than people realize, professional thieves tunnel into the vault and empty the boxes. The bank bears zero financial responsibility.
Unless you can prove gross negligence, which is an incredibly high bar in court, the bank's liability is usually limited to a refund of your annual rental fee.
Zero. That seems impossible. They have to be liable for something. If I put $1 million in there and it vanishes due to their failure to stop a fire, they'd just say, oops.
That is the standard contract. I've audited these agreements. You have to read the fine print of the box lease agreement.
The one nobody reads.
The one nobody reads. It's usually about 10 pages of dense legalese.
No.
And it explicitly states that the contents are not insured by the FDIC and not insured by the bank. They usually have a clause that says something like, the bank exercises no knowledge or supervision over the contents of the box.
No knowledge or supervision.
Listen.
They're washing their hands a bit before I even put the key in the lock.
Exactly. It's a liability waiver. They provide the box. You take the risk. If there is a fire or a flood, think about Hurricane Katrina, where thousands of safe deposit boxes were underwater for weeks.
Oh, wow.
Turning paper money and documents into pulp. The bank is not writing checks to cover those losses.
That's horrifying. Because I think most people assume the heavy steel door is the insurance.
Right.
They think, well, it's a bank vault. It's impenetrable.
The steel door is a physical deterrent, not a financial insurance policy.
Yeah.
And vaults get breached. It happens. But here is where the bearer asset problem comes in, which makes this even worse than a storage locker.
How so?
Let's say the vault is robbed or destroyed by a fire. How do you prove what was in your box?
Well, I know what was in there. I might have a list at home. Maybe a spreadsheet.
But can you prove it to a court of law? The whole point of a safe deposit box is privacy. The bank doesn't know what's in there. You don't declare the contents when you walk in.
Sure.
You go into a little private room, you shut the door, and you put your stuff in. So if it goes missing and you sue the bank claiming you had $1 million in rare diamonds and gold coins.
The bank says we have no record of that.
Exactly. They say, prove it. It's your word against a pile of ash or an empty slot. And courts generally do not award damages based on the plaintiff's word alone when the contract specifically excludes liability.
So you're storing untraceable wealth in a facility that takes no responsibility for it. It's the worst of both worlds.
It is.
You have the illusion of safety, but the reality of total exposure.
Correct. And this is why the sources point out that to be truly safe in a bank box, you are required to purchase third-party collectibles insurance.
Which implies that the bank's insurance isn't covering me. If I have to buy my own insurance, what am I paying the bank for? Just the metal box.
You are paying for the illusion, and that third-party insurance is very expensive. Plus, it requires you to disclose what you have to the insurance company.
Right.
You have to provide appraisals, photos, serial numbers. This defeats the whole privacy aspect for many people who hold precious metals specifically because they want privacy.
So they don't do it.
So most retail investors, the traditional savers, never buy this insurance. They rely on the FDIC myth. They see the sticker on the front door and assume it covers the back room. It does not.
It's amazing how much weight that little sticker carries in our collective psyche. We just stop asking questions once we see it.
It's a psychological pacifier. It's designed to stop panic. It was created in the 1930s to stop bank runs. But for a forensic auditor, it's a red herring. It draws your eye away from the actual contract terms. You are a tenant, not a depositor. And your landlord takes no responsibility for your property.
Okay, so that's the first trap. The financial protection I thought I had doesn't exist. Now let's talk about the second trap. This one is less about the money disappearing and more about not being able to reach it.
The access trap, or what I like to call the liquidity gap.
Right. The source material brings up this idea of liquidity. If I'm buying silver, I'm usually doing it because I'm worried about a crisis, maybe a grid failure, maybe hyperinflation, maybe just a personal emergency where I need cash fast.
Sure.
I want an asset that works when the credit card terminals are down.
Exactly. You are buying insurance against chaos. You are buying an asset that works when the computers stop working. You want sovereign money.
But the bank runs on a schedule that doesn't really account for chaos.
It runs on a legacy schedule, banker's hours. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Maybe a half day on Saturday if you're lucky.
If you're lucky. And closed on all federal holidays.
Which is a lot of the time.
Think about the math. There are 168 hours in a week. A bank is open for maybe 40 of them. That means for roughly 75% of your life, 3/4 of the time, your wealth is physically inaccessible to you.
It's incarcerated.
It is incarcerated.
I love the analogy the source uses here. They call it the locked lifeboat.
It's a perfect analogy. Let's play that out. Imagine you are on a cruise ship. You're a prudent person, so you are worried about the ship sinking. You don't trust the ship's lifeboats.
Okay.
So you go out and you buy a premium, private, unsinkable lifeboat. You spend a lot of money on it. You feel very secure. But then, for convenience, you decide to store that lifeboat inside the captain's quarters.
And the captain locks his door at 5 p.m. every day and goes to dinner.
Exactly. And naturally, when does the ship hit the iceberg?
It's never at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. It's always at 2 a.m. on a Sunday.
Right. When the captain is asleep or gone. When the crisis hits, when the panic sets in, you run to the captain's quarters. You can see your lifeboat through the window. It's right there. It's safe. It's functional. But the door is locked.
Wow.
You drown with a perfectly good lifeboat just out of reach.
That is a vivid image.
Yeah.
And it really drives home the absurdity of the situation. We buy these assets for the worst-case scenario, but we store them in a place that is only open during the best-case scenario.
And it gets worse when we move from personal emergencies to systemic ones. We need to talk about the bank holiday.
Now, you say bank holiday, I think of getting a day off work, President's Day, Columbus Day. I think of a long weekend.
Right.
But in banking terms, this means something very, very different.
Very different. We need to look at the historical context. Go back to 1933 in the United States. The Great Depression is in full swing. There is a run on the banks.
Right. Everyone's panicking.
Everyone is trying to pull their money out at once because they've lost confidence in the solvency of the banks.
So what does the government do? They can't just print money back then like they do now.
FDR takes office on a Saturday. By 1 a.m. on Monday morning, he issues a proclamation declaring a bank holiday. He orders every bank in the country to close its doors.
A federal mandate.
It was a federal mandate. This wasn't a request. For an entire week, the U.S. financial system stood still.
So people couldn't get their cash.
Nobody could get anything. Checks couldn't be cashed, accounts were frozen, and critically, safe deposit boxes were inaccessible.
So even if you had gold in the box, which was real money, you were broke because you couldn't get to it.
Yes.
You were starving with a pocket full of keys to a locked door.
You were locked out by the very system you were trying to hedge against. Unless you think this is ancient history, look at the modern precedents. Look at Greece in 2015, look at Cyprus in 2013, look at Lebanon more recently.
I remember seeing the news footage from Lebanon. People were literally banging on the glass, screaming they were bringing sledgehammers to the ATMs. It was desperation.
Banks boarded up their windows. They locked the doors to stop capital flight. When a systemic liquidity crisis hits, the first thing a bank does is protect itself. It shuts the doors, it preserves capital, it goes into survival mode.
And the source speculates on a 2026 scenario. Let's play that out. Say we hit a massive debt crisis, a liquidity trap where the markets freeze up.
Or a cyber attack on the grid.
Right. If that happens and the financial plumbing seizes up, the government may very well order a freeze to stop the panic.
And if the banks freeze, your safe deposit box is trapped behind those glass doors. The irony is palpable. The exact moment you need your physical wealth to survive, to buy food, to pay for fuel, to bribe your way out of a bad situation, is the exact moment the bank will legally deny you access to it.
It's the locked lifeboat on a national scale.
And we also have to touch on the concept of bail-ins. This connects to the Dodd-Frank legislation passed after 2008.
Right, I've heard this term. We know about bailouts, where the government gives taxpayer money to the banks to save them. That made everyone angry. So what is a bail-in?
It was popularized after the 2008 crash. Essentially, the new rules say that if a bank becomes insolvent, instead of a taxpayer bailout, they can bail in using the bank's own liabilities. They can convert depositor funds into equity to recapitalize the bank.
So they take my money and give me worthless stock in a failing bank.
That's the mechanism. Now, to be legally precise, the contents of a safe deposit box are not supposed to be part of the bank's balance sheet.
Okay.
Since it's a lease, not a deposit, they shouldn't be touchable in a bail-in.
Okay, so that's some good news. At least legally, they can't confiscate the box to pay the bank's debts.
In theory, however...
I hear a big however coming.
However, in a chaotic bail-in scenario, the bank is closed. The forensic accountants are going through everything. The regulators are swarming the building. The employees are sent home.
It's chaos.
Do you think they're going to prioritize letting you in to get your gold coins while the bank is collapsing?
No. They're going to lock the doors and figure it out later.
Yeah.
It could take weeks or months.
Exactly. Possession is 9/10 of the law. And in a crisis, the bank has possession. You just have a piece of paper and a key that doesn't work because the lock is electronic or the door is barred.
It's an administrative freeze.
It can last for months while they sort out who owns what.
It really is a trap. You're trapped by the hours, you're trapped by the holidays, and you're trapped by the solvency of the institution.
But those are all passive traps. Those are things that happen to the bank and you suffer the collateral damage.
Right.
We need to move to the third threat, the active threat, the one where you are the target.
The Beverly Hills precedent.
This is where we shift from the bank being the problem to the government being the problem.
Okay, let's set the stage here. Because up until now, I could argue, okay, sure, the bank might fail, but the government isn't going to come take my stuff without a reason. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I pay my taxes. They need a warrant to open my box.
That is the traditional saver defense. I have nothing to hide. And it sounds reasonable. The Fourth Amendment protects us from unreasonable search and seizure. It's bedrock law.
Right, probable cause. They need to show a judge that I, personally, did something wrong.
But the security auditor has a different file to show you. We need to open the case file on the 2021 raid of U.S. private vaults in Beverly Hills. This case shattered the illusion of Fourth Amendment protection for safe deposit boxes.
Tell me about this place. This wasn't a normal bank, right?
No, it was a private vaulting facility. Ironically, people went there because they didn't trust banks. They thought it was safer, more private.
The anti-bank.
It was marketed to people who wanted anonymity. It had biometric security, 24/7 access. It was the anti-bank.
So what happened?
The FBI began investigating the business itself. They suspected that U.S. private vaults was facilitating money laundering, that they were looking the other way when criminals rented boxes. They thought the company was catering to the criminal underworld.
Okay, so they go after the business owners. That makes sense. If the business is breaking the law, shut it down.
If they had stopped there, we wouldn't be talking about it. But they didn't. They got a warrant to seize the computers and the business assets of the facility, but the warrant explicitly limited the scope.
How so?
The magistrate judge specifically told the FBI that the warrant did not authorize a criminal search of the contents of the customer boxes.
So the judge said, you can take the business records, but don't touch the customer stuff unless you have a warrant for them.
Correct. But the FBI found a loophole. They said, well, we have to take the business's nests of boxes into custody. And to do an inventory of the property to protect ourselves from liability, we need to open them.
An inventory search. That sounds like a pretext, a total excuse.
It was absolutely a pretext. They raided the vault, they brought in tools, and physically cracked open over 1,400 individual private safe deposit boxes.
Wait, 1,400.
1,400.
Did they have a warrant for 1,400 people? Did they have 1,300 names on a list of suspected drug dealers?
No. And that is the crux of the issue. They cast a dragnet. They assumed that because the facility was suspect, everyone using the facility was suspect.
Guilty by association.
Exactly. They treated the customers as guilty by association.
So grandmothers, people storing family heirlooms, people just storing some gold for retirement, they all got raided.
Everyone. One guy was a jazz saxophone player who kept his cash tips in there. Another was a doctor. Another was a retiree holding gold coins. They seized over $86 million in cash.
$86 million.
They seized gold, silver, jewelry, watches. They literally emptied the vault. They put the contents into evidence bags and took it all.
But how is that legal? If I rent an apartment in a building and the landlord is a criminal, the police can't just kick down my door and take my TV without a warrant for me.
In the criminal law world, you are right. But they used a different legal mechanism. This is the core of our intelligence briefing today. It's called civil asset forfeiture.
Civil asset forfeiture. We hear this term, but unpack it for us. What does it actually mean? Because it sounds bureaucratic, but the reality is aggressive.
It is a legal loophole that flips the justice system on its head. In a criminal case, the government charges a person with a crime. The People v. John Smith. They have to prove John Smith is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
Right. Innocent until proven guilty. That's the standard we all know.
In civil asset forfeiture, the government charges the property with a crime. This is based on old maritime law where they could seize a pirate ship even if the pirate escaped. The case name will literally be something like United States of America v. $10,000 in U.S. currency.
They sue the money.
They sue the money. They claim the money is guilty of being involved in criminal activity. And here's the terrifying part. The money has no rights. The money is not presumed innocent.
So the burden of proof shifts.
Completely. Once they seize it, the burden of proof falls on you, the owner, to prove that the money is innocent. You have to prove that you earned it legally.
That sounds incredibly difficult. How do you prove a negative? How do I prove I didn't sell drugs 10 years ago to buy that gold coin?
Right.
What if I bought it for cash at a coin show in 1995?
Exactly. You might not have the receipt, and that is what happened to the box holders in Beverly Hills. They were guilty until proven innocent. The FBI sent them notices saying, essentially, we have your property. If you want it back, come claim it.
But to claim it, you have to identify yourself.
Correct. You have to destroy your own anonymity. You have to step forward, give your name to the FBI, hire federal lawyers, which costs a fortune.
Oh, my God.
And then undergo a forensic financial audit by the IRS and FBI.
They had to show their tax returns.
They had to show everything. Pay stubs, inheritance records, sales receipts. If you couldn't document exactly where every dollar came from to buy that gold, the government kept it.
They just kept it.
They basically said, if you can't prove you earned this legitimately, we assume you stole it.
It feels like legal theft.
That is the term the source material uses. It describes it as a chilling precedent where privacy is pierced without individual probable cause.
And these were innocent people?
The vast majority were completely innocent. They were just traditional savers who got caught in the dragnet because they rented a box in the same facility as some alleged criminals.
So did they get their stuff back?
Some of them eventually did after a massive class action lawsuit, but only after months of stress, legal fees, and exposure. Others who couldn't prove the source of funds lost it forever.
So the lesson here is, even if you are doing everything right, even if you are 100% legitimate, if you store your wealth in a centralized vault that gets targeted, you lose.
You become collateral damage. You are vulnerable to the crimes or the suspected crimes of the person renting the box next to you.
This really shatters the defense I had earlier. I thought the government needed a reason to target me. But they don't. They just need a reason to target the building, and I get swept up.
And think about the 2026 filter again. In a time of crisis, governments get desperate. History shows that when nations get into debt trouble, they look for pools of wealth to seize.
And a bank vault is a massive, concentrated pool of wealth.
It's a honeypot. It's all sitting there, neatly organized, behind one door. If you want to confiscate gold, like the U.S. did in 1933, or if you want to implement a wealth tax, or if you want to fight money laundering with a broad brush,
the safe deposit box system is the easiest target.
It's the low-hanging fruit of asset seizure. And by using civil asset forfeiture, they can bypass a lot of the constitutional protections you think you have. It basically circumvents due process.
It allows the government to seize first and ask questions later.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, let's take a breath. This is heavy stuff. We've covered the insurance myth, you're not covered. We've covered the access trap, you're locked out. And we've covered the confiscation precedent, you're a target.
That's the trifecta of risk.
I'm feeling pretty exposed right now. I'm imagining my silver sitting in a dark box downtown, and it doesn't feel like a safety net anymore. It feels like a liability. It feels like I've put my savings in a trap.
That is the realization of the security auditor. Once you see the liability, you can't unsee it. You realize that custody is the most important word in finance.
So what do? We can't just leave this deep dive with everyone terrified. We need the smart money alternatives. The outline calls for a verdict.
The verdict is clear. We need to apply the 2026 filter. We are preparing for a world of potential financial instability. In that world, sovereignty is the only safety.
Sovereignty, that's a big word. It sounds political. What does it mean in this context?
It means absolute control. It means no counterparties. It means you don't have to ask permission to access your own life savings. It means you are the master of your own destiny.
So if I'm holding physical silver because it's decentralized money,
then storing it in a centralized bank negates its entire value proposition. You are taking a sovereign asset and turning it into a captive asset.
you're defeating the purpose of buying it in the first place.
You might as well just buy a paper ETF if you aren't going to hold it.
Okay, let's get to the actionable advice. The source lists 3 commandments for the smart money. Let's break them down.
Commandment number 1, empty the box. Straight and simple, no messing around.
No ambiguity here. The expert verdict is to remove anti-fiat assets, gold, silver, cash from commercial banks immediately. Don't wait for the crisis. Don't wait for the bank holiday. Just go get it. Make an appointment tomorrow.
It's like getting your lifeboat out of the captain's quarters before the ship sets sail.
Exactly. Put it on your own deck.
Okay, but once I take it out, where do I put it? I can't just leave gold bars on my coffee table. That creates a whole new set of risks. If I take it home, I'm worried about burglars.
That leads to commandment number 2, personal custody. This is the be your own central bank model.
This is for the smaller amounts, right? Right. If you have a stack that you can physically manage, maybe it's $10,000, $50,000, even $100,000, depending on your comfort level and neighborhood, the best place is under your direct control.
But isn't that risky? Burglars. Fire. I worry about someone putting a gun to my head.
There is risk in everything. Life is risk management. But consider this. The risk of a burglar is a probability. It might happen, it might not.
Okay.
The risk of a bank holiday and a currency collapse is a certainty. The risk of the bank being closed on weekends is a certainty. You can manage the burglar risk.
What's the professional way to do it?
You don't use a $50 tin box from Walmart. You invest in a high-quality, fire-rated home safe. Look for ratings like TL15 or TL30.
What does that mean, TL15?
It means tool-resistant for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
These are heavy. They're concrete-lined. It takes a professional with serious tools a long time to get in.
And you bolt it down.
Absolutely. Bolt it to the concrete foundation. Make it impossible to move. Hide it. Put it behind a false wall. Put it under the floorboards.
And the source mentions OPSC, operational security.
This is the most important part. Silence. You tell no one.
No one.
You don't tell your neighbors, you don't tell your coworkers, and for God's sakes, you don't post pictures of your gold stack on Instagram or Facebook.
Loose lips sink ships.
Precisely. If no one knows you have it, no one will come looking for it. Your anonymity is your best armor. In the bank, your name is on a list. At home, if you do it right, you are a ghost.
Okay, but what about the whales? What if I have $5 million in gold? I don't want that in my basement. That's too much responsibility. I don't want to sleep on top of that much liability.
That's fair. For larger wealth, we move to commandment number 3, private allocated vaults.
How is that different from a bank? Isn't it just another building with a safe?
It is, but the legal structure is totally different. We are talking about specialized non-bank depositories. Think of places like Brinks, or private vaults in jurisdictions like Singapore or Switzerland, or even private depositories in Texas or Delaware.
What makes them safer?
First, they are often outside the banking system. They are logistics companies, not banks. So a bank holiday doesn't shut them down. They don't lend money, so they can't go insolvent in the same way.
Okay.
Second, and most importantly, they offer allocated storage.
Meaning the specific bars belong to me, with my name on them.
Yes. In a bank, your cash is a liability on their books. In an allocated vault, your gold is your property. It is legally segregated. It sits on a specific shelf with your name on it. If the vault company goes bankrupt, your gold is not part of their assets to pay their debts. It still belongs to you.
It's off balance sheet.
Exactly.
And I assume they have better insurance.
Usually, yes. They offer full insurance policies that actually cover the metal, unlike the FDIC. It's a professional service for serious wealth.
So the Singapore strategy mentioned in the source, that's about geographic diversification too.
Right. If you are worried about your own government confiscating assets, like the 1933 scenario, you store some of your wealth in a jurisdiction that respects property rights outside the reach of your local FBI or IRS.
You spread the risk.
You don't keep all your eggs in one basket, and you don't keep all your baskets in one country.
That's the ultimate level of the game. That's true diversification.
It is. But for the average listener, the first step is the most critical. Get it out of the bank. Break the chain of custody.
I want to circle back to that visual we talked about in the intro. The noir trap.
By heavy glass doors.
Yeah, I'm picturing it now. It's night. The streetlights are reflecting off the wet pavement. I'm standing outside the bank. I can see the vault in the back. But there are heavy chains on the door handles. A sign says, closed by federal mandate. And I'm on the outside.
And you realize that your wealth is just a few feet away, but it might as well be on the moon. You are locked out. And you realize you paid for the privilege of being locked out.
That is the nightmare.
Yeah.
And that is what we are trying to help people avoid today.
It's about recognizing the trap before the door slams shut. It's about being proactive, not reactive. The time to fix your roof is when the sun is shining, not when the storm is already overhead.
You know, this deep dive has really shifted my perspective. I started this thinking, well, the bank is convenient. It's what everyone does.
Conformity is comfortable. But in finance, conformity can be fatal. The herd usually gets slaughtered.
But comfort isn't safety. That's the realization. I have voluntarily surrendered my wealth to the system I tried to escape. It's a complete paradox.
It is. And to close, I want to read the warning from the source verbatim because I think it sums up everything we've discussed perfectly. This is the takeaway.
Let's hear it.
If you want to be your own central bank, you can't store your reserves in someone else's vault.
That hits hard. Being your own central bank means taking full responsibility.
It does. It means you are the CEO, the vault manager, and the security team. It's more work. It requires more thought. But it's the only way to be truly free.
So here's the question for you, the listener. We've laid out the evidence. We've shown you the forensic files. We've looked at the contracts. Do you still use a bank safe deposit box? Are you relying on that FDIC sticker? Or did you realize this trap years ago and take your wealth into your own hands?
It's a question worth asking before the next crisis, not during it.
Absolutely. This has been a heavy one, but an important one. We'll be back with more insights to help you navigate this system. But until then, remember the sign-off from our source.
The future belongs to the owners.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.